Right, good evening. Good evening. Welcome everyone once more. I really hope and pray you are doing well. You know, with the lights thing, Phil was saying at first, now the clocks have gone back and it's been a few weeks with these, stronger lights here. I think it's a bit like coffee and having like caffeine. You build up a tolerance over time. First week I couldn't see anyone. Now I can kind of make out a few of you. It's like building up a tolerance. Anyway, yeah, I hope and pray that you are doing well. But the reality of life in a fallen world, corrupted by our sin, is that everything is not really always all right, is it? And really that's a snapshot of what we're going to look at tonight and over the next couple of weeks. Last week, Dave, he wrapped up our Unfiltered series, where we explored what it means to bring our emotional realities to the Lord and have the gospel shape them. And now briefly, kind of nicely flowing on from that, we're going to spend 3 weeks, just to bring us over to Advent, we're going to spend 3 weeks going through the Old Testament book, another minor prophet book, like we're doing in the morning, of Habakkuk, in a new series called Faith in the Dark. Faith in the Dark. Habakkuk has 3 chapters. We've got 3 weeks. And I can sum up the journey we're going to go on in 3 words. Those 3 words: wrestling, then waiting, then worship. Wrestling, waiting, worship. And the prophet's book is a little unique as well. Unlike the other prophets who speak for God to people, it's kind of the other way around. Habakkuk speaks to God on behalf of the people. And the backdrop here for Habakkuk is late 7th century, before Jesus, that is, of course. And Judah is morally corrupt, and anguish and violence, and corruption and sin, they fill the land. And the threat of Babylonian invasion, that's like a neighboring kingdom, Babylonian invasion is looming. Yet, God at first seems to appear silent. The book is a conversation between a confused prophet and the sovereign God. As Habakkuk witnesses this evil go seemingly unchecked, he wrestles with the sovereignty of God. He wrestles when his prayers are seemingly unanswered. He questions and he complains. But I don't think it's like whining. I think he complains in a spirit of lament. A spirit of lament that's journeying towards trust and even joy and worship by the end of the book, by having faith in the dark. You know, faith is not the absence of honest questions or doubts. It's trusting God even when you can't see what he's doing. That's what I want us to see in this short series over the next few weeks. I want us to journey with Habakkuk to see how even in our lament, even in the darkest times, through faith, we can trust in God no matter the circumstances. Habakkuk shows us then that real faith doesn't ignore darkness, but it faces it. Wrestling, waiting to worship. That's the next 3 weeks. But this week, we're going to tackle chapter 1. Chapter 1 and a little bit. We ask with Habakkuk this question: how long, O Lord? The first thing he says is, how long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Just before we read, I want to tell you a little story. It brings to mind a season years ago, before Alia and the kids, when rumors and lies were spread about me, and I lost several close friends who believed the lies as my reputation was damaged. And at the same time, in the same period, I was in and out of hospital, heart-related and neurological problems. I was very low. I was very low in that time and period. And I prayed and I prayed and prayed, and for a long time, they felt unanswered. I felt confused. Yet eventually, in God's timing, I came to see all the blessings that came from those dark circumstances. And now I count them joy. And I even thank God for them. The point I'm making is that in one way or another, I think we can all say that we've been there. We've all at one point or another said, "How long, O Lord?" Right? So let's read the chapter together. Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 1 to chapter 2, verse 1. And if you're using the church Bibles, you'll find it on page 940. 940. Here we go. Habakkuk 1. The prophecy that Habakkuk the prophet received. Habakkuk's complaint. How long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Or cry out to you violence, but you do not save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. Therefore the law is paralyzed and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous so that justice is perverted. The Lord's answer. Look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe even if you were told. I am raising up the Babylonians, that ruthless and impetuous people who sweep across the whole earth to seize dwellings not their own. They are a feared and dreaded people. They are a law to themselves and promote their own honor. Their horses are swifter than leopards, fiercer than wolves at dusk. Their cavalry gallops headlong. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle swooping to devour. They all come intent on violence. Their hordes advance like a desert wind and gather prisoners like sand. They mock kings and they scoff at rulers. They laugh at all fortified cities. By building earthen ramps, they capture them. Then they sweep past like the wind and go on, guilty people whose own strength is their God. Habakkuk's second complaint. Lord, are you not from everlasting? My God, my Holy One, you will never die. You, Lord, have appointed them to execute judgment. You, my rock, have ordained them to punish. Your eyes are too pure to look on evil. You cannot tolerate wrongdoing. Why then do you tolerate the treacherous? Why are you silent while the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves? You have made people like the fish in the sea, like the sea creatures that have no ruler. The wicked foe pulls all of them up with hooks. He catches them in his net. He gathers them up in his dragnet. And so he rejoices and is glad. Therefore he sacrifices to his net and burns incense to his dragnet. For by his net he lives in luxury and enjoys the choicest foods. Is he to keep on emptying his net, destroying nations without mercy? I will stand at my watch, and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me, and what answer I am to give to this complaint. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It's quite a lot to read, wasn't it? That's good. But we do end up just there for tonight. A bit of a cliffhanger, right? Because we won't hear the Lord's reply, second reply, until next week. Unless you read ahead, of course. So whilst we will move through in the coming weeks, it's not my job tonight to answer the question, how long, O Lord? That's not my job tonight. Rather, the idea tonight is that we're going to embody that question. Embody that question with Habakkuk to wrestle with God's sovereignty. I want us to understand this tonight. That faith begins when easy answers stop. Even when things are darkest for others or ourselves, even when we look upon injustice, we bring our lament, our cry to God, and by faith, we trust in who he is and keep watch, patiently waiting for his response. Faith begins when easy answers stop. We bring our cry, then we trust, and wait. Easier said than done, right? Okay, well, let's look at it. What's going on in the chapter? First, Habakkuk complains. He's saying, God, why don't you act? Why do you allow this? But I don't think it's whining, no. See, Micah, he's witnessing all this injustice in Judah. Like I spoke about a few weeks ago, God instructs us to love what he loves and hate what he hates. God hates sin. God hates injustice. And Habakkuk is doing just that, isn't he? He's having an understandable and moral reaction to the injustice around him. Look at the verses. Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? It's like, why do you let this happen, Lord? Why don't you act? But he's not being irreverent. He's not being disrespectful. I think he's just being honest and real with God. And here, let me define lament for us. Lament is a faithful response to suffering. Lament is a prayer that expresses pain and confusion to God whilst maintaining faith and trust. The language of lament is the language of the faithful who refuse to ever think ill of God, even when they can't understand his decisions. We've all been here, right? Angered by an injustice in the world or lamenting in a season of darkness. We've all been there saying, how long, O Lord? You know, I just can't put into words how indignant and heartbroken I am every time I look at my phone or the computer and I see the Christian news pop up. Another however many hundred of our brothers and sisters in Nigeria have been systematically hunted and murdered by Islamic forces. Right now, that's happening today. Right today. I can't tell you how long, oh Lord. But God invites honest faith that laments and cries in the pain, not fearing the darkness, but facing it with him. Facing it with God, facing it in God. Holding on to his eternal treasures with both hands, trusting in his ultimate purposes, even if they hurt for now. We see that in the story of Job, don't we? Such a great book to read with this kind of thing. And wrestling with the sovereignty of God. We see it in the Psalms as well. Let me just give you a quick flavor of Psalm 73. When my heart was grieved and my spirit embittered, I was ignorant, a brute beast before you, God. Yet you hold me by my right hand, and afterward you will take me into glory. And earth has nothing I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but you, God, are my portion forever. So when God seems distant or silent, don't stop praying. Pray more. Like Habakkuk in complaint, don't stop praying. Just get real with him and lament. Lament is a form of faith. Okay. Then from verse 5, we have the Lord's first answer. Habakkuk asks, God, why don't you act? God answers, I am doing something. I am acting, but not in the way you think or expect. I think we can empathize with that as well, probably. As we think about the Lord's answer here, friends, let me just say that this is hard, okay? This wrestling with God's sovereignty like this is not easy, but it is really, really good. I promise you that. It is really good, for the higher our view of God and his sovereign control of the universe, the richer and more attesting our faith becomes. When you understand that God is ultimately in charge, when you understand and believe in his sovereignty, you will find a supernatural comfort and peace that is without comparison. Because even though it might be this way or that way for now, it's ultimately in his hands. Look at God's response, verse 5. Look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told. I am raising up the Babylonians. They are a feared and dreaded people. So God informs Habakkuk that he was not indifferent to Judah's sin, but nor was he sending restoration. Rather, he was raising up Babylon, a violent nation, a violent empire, to bring judgment. So God is doing something. It just perhaps is not what Habakkuk wanted or he himself could see. God sees the unrepentant evil and injustice in Judah, and he acts against it. So he is working. But his choice to use Babylon to do it raises more questions for Habakkuk, doesn't it? More on that in a minute. The first answer is that God is at work, but not always how we expect. That's true for our lives. Even if we don't understand it like a child to a parent, we trust that he knows best. God's plans may have things get worse before they get better. It may be painful or confusing to us, but it's always purposeful. Know this evening, that there is always purpose in your trial. Even if we can't understand it all the time, there's always purpose in the furnace flame. Having faith in the dark means trusting that God's work may be unseen to you and me, but he's not absent. He's not absent. Understanding the sovereignty of God is a soul-searching journey. But here is an image that I've found helpful. I didn't create this. I remember seeing it somewhere, but I found it helpful, so I'm going to give it to you tonight. It's a bit like this. It's a bit like a tapestry. My wife, Alia, sometimes she likes to make these kind of threaded designs on canvas or fabric. And look at it this way. The fabric itself is creation, yeah? Creation is God's great canvas. And these different colored threads, you can all see in there, the different colored threads are the authored steps of our lives. And they're interwoven with each other, aren't they? And they're interwoven in the very fabric of creation. And what it shows is this, that living now, right now, this side of heaven, is like living on this side of the tapestry, right? From our perspective, God's plans and purposes might seem like a mess of threads. For in this time of redemptive history, he is patient with sinners. He allows their evil to roam for now. So God's sovereignty might seem confusing and messy to us like these threads. But one day when it's all said and done, God will say enough is enough, and all sin will be stamped out by Jesus' feet in the divine winepress. One day every tear will be wiped away, and in glory we will be on the other side of this tapestry. And we will see on that day how God has been working all things together for his glory and our good. The threads are a mess underneath, aren't they? Oh, they're a mess underneath. But on top, it's a masterpiece, isn't it? That's what I really want us to take away tonight. To understand, lament, to begin to wrestle with the sovereignty of God. But I suppose at the end of the chapter we come to a bit of a cliffhanger, just as our reading does. Habakkuk's second complaint. He accepts God's response that he will raise up Babylon to bring judgment. But he asks, how can that be just? It's like, okay, God, you are working, you're bringing judgment, but aren't the Babylonians even more wicked than Judah? That's what Habakkuk asks. But he affirms God's character. Again, he's not being irreverent. He says, my God, my Holy One, my rock, you have ordained them to punish. But he is still questioning. He's still wrestling, saying, Why then do you tolerate the treacherous? It's like, why is Judah being punished now but not Babylon? Habakkuk at this point is still caught between what he knows about God's sovereignty and the pain he sees around him. He's still stuck there. He's not quite moved on yet. So lament is a form of faith. Wrestling with God is better than pretending. Faith in the dark is holding on to who God is when you can't explain what you see. And we end just like Habakkuk at that first verse of chapter 2. I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me. He asks the question, but doesn't yet have an answer. But Habakkuk's posture has started to change, hasn't it? I will stand at my watch and wait. His posture's changing from wrestling to waiting. That is where our faith begins to grow, in the waiting. So when God feels silent, even though we might not understand his purposes yet, the faithful get real with God. We cry, how long, O Lord? And then we stand and we wait. So be encouraged tonight. Be encouraged. It's okay to cry, how long, O Lord? It's okay to wrestle with the sovereignty of God. Faith begins when easy answers stop. We bring our cry, we trust, and wait. We'll explore more. We'll explore more next time. Amen.